Hello everyone. Today I'm going to explain about chapter 10. So that application is quite different. The tip calculator that we practiced so far. So what is the distinct feature of this app in chapter 10 is it has asynchronous a thread which is thread runs on background. So the current app, which is tip calculator, we developed so far, only has one thread. That means thread waits for users' input, such as touch and scroll down and input numbers. But this app also shows interface to the app to users, and it receives users interactions like touching RSS feed, but it all keeps background threads which has independently executed from main thread of the application. And also through this application you're going to learn how to handle files. Alright, and adapters and intents. Let's move, but I'm not going to show application itself. I will just share my app and my source code. I will explain the mechanism, how to develop similar applications, which uses multiple threads. So I think it will be useful to develop lots of different kinds of apps. The reason is currently most of application we use at this moment use multiple threads. So having multiple threads, we can make application runs on background, especially runs on background at the background level of Android system. Okay, so let me start. So you're going to learn these objects. Task more than a few seconds executes. The reason it will more seconds, and so far the tip calculator shows result right after receiving users input, such as clicking apply button or increase tip percent. But sometimes you have to, when you connect to other server, the server may not immediately respond your responses your request. Even the server's immediately responses, you may not receive the result immediately, depending on the environment surrounding you, such as network condition and your client machine as well. So you have to make an application which acts as server. It's better to consider a synchronous task. Okay, so a asynchronous task is handled by thread which runs independently. A task that takes more than a few seconds. Okay, so I'm not going to repeat it. After thread finishes executing and given URL, and after read RSS on internet, you have to download the file into the form of XML to your local drive. Okay, and to handle this process, you have to know how to save, how to download RSS, and how to open the XML feed again to show indent or items in XML to interface or screen of users. So you have to know how to handle files. Basically, you have to use streams, file streams, and under file streams there are file output stream and file input stream, and there are more different types of streams. But the idea stream, a stream is basically basically those are classes to handle input and output, including file handling. But the ideal stream to handle files is a file output and an input. Okay, given data that's stored in an array, use an adapter to display data. List view is it. So we're going to use list view and use intent to pass data from one activity to other. And use an intent to start web browser or to dial a core phone number. So that is the interface we're going to see it. Okay, and once you run the app, then you'll see the title. Okay, we'll see title here, and you'll see the list of items. Okay, by default, I don't know if you have heard about RSS. RSS is a file which is formatted in XML and saved to a certain server. And if you subscribe at RSS, you're going to update it after the service provider update RSS feed. That means it's very useful to receive news from CNN or other major media. So okay, so though that is those items are from the RSS feed by CNN, and actually if you go to the RSS using web browser, what you can see is a little different from the one you can see in the screen. So let me, using web browser, let me go to RSS by CNN, http CNN rss.cnn.com/rss/cnn_tech.rss. Alright, let me go to the website. Then you'll see certain website, and every time, but not every time, sometimes because they have update period. So sometimes if you refresh it, then you'll see a little different with updated information. Let me refresh it. Okay. Snaps turnaround gets boosted as lockdown spurs urge is the latest RSS content. Okay, so anyway, or you can see using web app, the interface or layout of the RSS feed is quite slightly different. The reason is that shows interface which is designed by CNN, but you can decide your own interface, and you can decide what will be shown to the users or what will be hidden or what how to allocate items. So let me see what we can see using an app. Okay, so well, that is the app, and the items, news items from CNN. So I can see the title, right, and date and item. So if I click it, then it shows shortened information of the news, and if you click it, then it shows pop menu, and you can decide which one you can go to the website. Okay. So let me accept. Well, this is first time to run these applications. So Snaps turnaround gets a boost as lockdown spurs urge. You can see the more information on it, right? So we're going to make an app, or we're going to take a look at how to make similar application, and I believe this app will give a lot of hints, a lot of good ideas for you to develop different types of app. Okay, the reason is we have to going behind the scene of the app. Okay, so first, this is URL. I already connected the URL using web browser, and if you see the URL which if you see in the XML, which is downloaded from this RSS, then it shows like this. All right, let me show. Let me see the source. Okay, well, I don't know how to. Well, it should show source. Okay, well, I think it is impossible to page source here. Yes, it's written in XML, right? Although the font is small, and although the layout format of XML file could be slightly different that we shown in the PowerPoint slide, but actually if you give old line and if you indent tab, then you'll see that similar XML from RSS. Okay, so first, title, you'll get the title, right? CNN.com technology, and publish date, and that is the published date when the recent RSS published, and it shows item, and you'll have multiple items, and each one item, within one item you'll have title, which is title of the news, and the link to see the details on CNN, and description, right? And published date when this item was published. So normally that the latest item, published date of last item, slightly older than the date when the RSS published. So next item is older than the recent item, and next item is older than the second recent item. So just like item, well, what have to be included in an item is a title, link, description, and published date. You'll have same items, same elements under item, and you have tags, closing tag like channel and RSS, then XML that you downloaded from RSS is finished. So what we'll do is to show the XML to the to application, you have to download XML from CNN or RSS, and to download it you have to save, and then after save the file you have to open, right? After open you have to parse XML document. Parse means read item element by element, and also parse means contains process to validate if the XML has correctly edited or not. For instance, if there's no closing tag like this, the XML cannot be validated. Okay, so you have to parse XML, and then you have to match element in the XML to certain class file you have to define, and using you have to match, and you have to make each element into the class file and variable in your class file, and the class file will be shown in your application, on your application. So let me explain the basic mechanism, right? One thread, if you have one thread, what your application can do is just receiving user input. That's it. That means, well, you may think, well, why don't we have this button? Then we can just keep a one thread application. That could be possible. But what if you get response CNN in 5 seconds? During the 5 seconds, your app will look like suspended or frozen. And if app looks like frozen, users will keep touching the screen, right? And it may kill the application process. So to avoid this kind of to avoid this situation and to allow have to allow some seconds for users with can wait, you have to use the multiple threads. So main thread will receive users input, but another thread will perform or will download XML from RSS by CNN, and then within the threads you can have multiple processes, multiple tasks, such as saving, opening XML, and parsing the XML. Right? Then, while another thread runs on background, your main thread will respond. It will wait users' input, and as long as the two threads are independent, your app won't look like frozen. That's a really nice thing. Okay. So first you have to define. You have to get the right URL, which is rsscnn.com, and the extension is RSS. On create method, well, that is quite same with our application. Super create. So you need to find the URL where you download XML, RSS XML. That is the URL, and just like the other class activity class, you have to override on create method, and then you have to import the content, which is layout, and then what you have to do is in on create method you have to create new instance of download feed and have to be executed. And download feed is inner class. Okay, it is inner class within item activity class. So you have to define to run a synchronous task. You have to be sent from a sync task, and then you have to override two methods: do in background and do on post executed. Okay, and then on in background class you can define strings, and you may receive strings, and if the string received, then you have to decode the strings. Okay, all right, and then on post executed, that will be run in background. Okay, those make text. That means once you download download the RSS, then the message will be shown in toast class. Actually, you have to define more here and here as well. So on as a synchronous task class, there's 4 methods defined: on pre-executed, on in background, on process update, and on post executed. And what you can do is you can override all those methods. You can override all those methods. So once the process updated, you can show intermediate messages to users, or you can show in progress message. Okay. All right, and have to so within this method, you can add to check if there's a recent or updated RSS feed. And if there is, you have to download, and you have to save the downloading one, and you also have to read the file. So in this process, if you don't have try catch closed, then you cannot proceed. The reason is for instance, when you save the file, there are a lot of reasons why you cannot save files. For instance, you don't have you don't have privileges, you may not have privileges on disk drive, or if there is a same file name, you cannot create a file, right? And it's the same. If there is a duplicate, same name of folder, you can't create any folder. And also, well, if the disk is full, you cannot save a file. So when you need to handle files, there are a lot of reasons that you may not able to create files or open files or even create folders. So you should use try catch. Okay, the source code is not well explained here, but you have to use try catch, and that is let me show the example here. For instance, when you try to connect a certain URL, which is the URL string, and that is the URL rsscnet.com, right? And when you open the file, there are a lot of reasons, lot of reasons that you can't, reasons why you cannot save a file, open the files. For instance, you may lose internet connection, or if the server is down, or any router or network node doesn't work between the server and you can't access the RSS, right? That the reason we cannot control. So for the many of reasons possible for many of reasons, so you have to have the case. You have to prefer the case. When you cannot save a file. So that's why you have to use try catch. Okay. In this case, exception could be either, but you can have more exceptions like that, or exceptions something like this. All right. So that's the example of the task. You can start a timer, and that is while you run, the milliseconds will be counted, and once that is done, the next line will be executed. So you can use some pause, a moment to pause between your code. Okay, that is example. I'm sorry, but anyway, that is one of the example to use timer and task or a synchronous task. Okay, so let me move to several next pages. This is part after you access certain URL, and this is part to save a file and access the given URL. So first, this is URL. In my source code I used URL string, but to show within one page, I will just use the fixed URL, which is HTTP here. So URL will be created with the URL RSS URL, and URL will be opened and using OpenStream method, which is defined in InStream class. To use the input stream, you must import input stream at the top of source code, right? And also, just like input stream, to save the XML from RSS, you have to use file output stream, which is the most convenient output stream to save certain data or content into form of file. To save a file, you have to have defined file name and or folder. Well, you can override the class. Anyway, and the content have to be will be private. So if you don't have the option, then the file is accessible for any other apps. Okay. So anyway, you will download the file and you will save the file as the given file name. You are just to define how the file will be saved. To to save the content actually into the file, you need to define as following. Buffer. You have to define default buffer size. Well, you can have more buffer size, but normally I use 1024 buffer. And its buffer will be read. The data will be read by buffer, which is 1024K. I think byte. I'm sorry, byte. Around 1 megabyte. So after read 1 megabyte will be write. The data will be written into the file. That is what this repeating process do, repeating task do. And after you save all data into the file, output stream and input stream must be closed. Must be closed. Okay. If you don't close it, you cannot open the file again. Otherwise, you need to kill the process. You need to kill your app. Okay, and then again, this process have to be defined within strike catch close. Right, and also what you have to, I shouldn't forget is you need to give permission to your app to access the internet, which is Android permission .internet. Without this permission, in manifest XML, your app has no permission to access the internet. So let me go to manifest. So I have permission right here. If you delete it, then your app cannot have any permission. And after Stable XML, what you have to do is you have to parse the XML, and there's predefined classes. JavaX.xml parsers.sox parser and sox parser factory, and those two files for parsing. And those three files is for reading XML. So reading XML will be going to parser, and parser will returns element by element, and also parser will validate the XML document. And also, to open and parse the XML, you must use try catch as well. The reason is even if you just want to open XML which is just saved, there's a lot of reasons why you can't open. There's a lot of possible reasons why you cannot open the files, such as the file is not closed. For instance, if you don't close it, even if you just wrote a file in your app, you cannot open the file, right? So there are a lot of scenarios why you cannot open file. So to parse the XML, you have to use those routines, factory and parsers and reader, okay, and RSS feed handler, content handler, and first you need to open file, right? Download a file, and input stream, and after defining input stream, you have to read the source itself, okay, and the source will have to be parsed using XML reader, and then content will be returned using this method. Okay, so after you parse the XML document item by item, you have to match the item to the form of class. To do that, you need to define two classes, RSS feed, okay, and RSS item. RSS item is more useful, can be used within the application, and so item elements on each item will store as form of variable in RSS item. So let's go back to XML. So let's say that is XML to download from RSS feed, and there is channel, right? And on the channel there is information on RSS feed itself when it is published, and you have multiple items, right? An RSS item will match to each element, which title, link, and description, and date, right? And there are multiple items, item 1, 2, and 3, and these items will be stored as if within the array, which corresponds to RSS feed handler, right? So you can define the RSS feed and RSS item like this, and this item will be used by within your source code. Alright. In this activity, you have well, when you define the activity itself, normally we had predefined values in strings, right? But we don't have it yet. So what you have to do is you have to show dummy items, and then once you receive RSS feed, you have to update. Okay, at start you don't have any items, and you'll show dummy items, and then new thread will be started and get RSS. And once RSS updated, you have to replace dummy item with parsed RSS item. That's what you have to do, and how this application runs. Alright, so list, you have to use list view is defined here. List view, you have to use list view for your layout. Okay, each item, this is each item, that items will be loaded within activity items. Right, that is what you have to use. Okay, and we have nothing yet, nothing yet. So, and then after you got RSS feed, you have to update. Okay, you have to update with received RSS feed, and because you will have multiple items, you have to parse XML first, and you have to match each item within XML to class RSS item, and with the RSS items, which is stored in array, you can update. Okay, so, and you can define onClick method, and in onClick method, what you can do is you can open. You don't need to have a specific option. What you have to do is you have to just add a link. Okay, and if by default a certain URL is clicked or touched by users, Android system will ask you if you want to go there with certain browser. Okay, that's what I saw in the example. So if I click read more item, Android system will automatically show this interface to users, right? And what you have to do, what users can do is just click once open, just once or always, and it automatically redirect to a website, which is CNN. So you have to add onset clicks listener and to wire the listener. you have to define, you have to import on-click listener, right? And because Java doesn't support dual inheritance, you have to use you have to implement on-click listener. And once you implement on-click listener, you have to override on-click method, right? And you can define what you can provide to users within this method. That's how to wire, right? So if you have URL in on-click listener, as I mentioned before, Android system will automatically open web browser, right? But if you have phone number like this, tel, which is protocol, and with this number, that Android system will automatically run phone app. Okay, so let me just replace with this number instead of HTTP. Okay, and click parse link. Okay, but you have to use a different intent. To open web browser, you have to use view. You have to create instance with intent action view. But if you want to make a phone call, if you want to allow for users to make a phone call, you have to create intent instance with intent.action.io. Then, by clicking this link, it is possible to make a phone call. Okay. So let me action view. Get string. Okay, let me create a different intent. Call. What was the again? Action call. I'm sorry. Action. Send. Action dial. You have to be action. Action dial is here. And then URL have to be tel. Okay, so regardless of the link, if I click one of the item, then the Android system will call to this number. Let me show it. Okay, it is installing now. It is installing a new app to the system. Okay, let me click one of the link. See, it tried to make a phone call, right? Let me click. Well, but I don't believe I can make a actual phone call. But because that is the virtual device. No, I can't make a phone call. Anyway, if this app is loaded to a real phone, it is possible to make a phone call to this number. Well, I'm not going to make a phone call. So, intent is really useful class to make a dynamic app. Okay. And action view, action dial, action call, or action send, which is to send message to a certain number, right? And to make a phone call, you need to get the permission, which is phone call. I used to access to open web browser, I use Android permission dot internet, right? To make a phone call, you need to have permission like this, but that is not directly related to our app. Anyway, so you can define activity icon like this, and list view items like this, and you can define use leader items activity class this shows entire source for items activity class. Okay, but I will provide a source code for you. So what I want to tell you is actually not was just source of the application. I wanted to explain how to make a synchronous app, how to define a synchronous task which especially runs on background, or how to and also I wanted to explain how to handle resource such as file, data, and content. Okay, to access, which means to save or open, you must use input output stream. Okay, and especially when you use input output stream, you must use try catch. That is what I want to emphasize in this chapter. So well, that's it, and thank you for watching my video clip. And well, you may while you watch this video clip, you may have heard some pause or noise, but well, I think it's a jinx because whenever I record video, I'll always receive phone call, spam or from spam phone call, or even from my friends. So if you ever heard any noise, then I apologize. And anyway, well, thank you for watching my video, and I will see you guys maybe in next week for presentation. Okay, that's the last chapter. So well, anyway, I will really appreciate for you guys to take my course under this situation. Well, it was really tough time, and actually it is still a really tough time. Okay, well, I hope you guys stay healthy and stay well, and keep social distance for your friend and for yourself. Alright, I will see you next time.